Hello everyone, and welcome back to my studio. My name is Lily, and today I want to talk about the good and the bad of working in Japan from my perspective as a Dominican and also as a neurodivergent girly. And this is just a continuation of my previous video about working in Japan. Is it that harsh? So I have some notes over here. So if you see me looking down, this is just me looking at my notes in Notion. So let's get into it. So let's start with the good. Overall, I love the permanent employment status that I have. As you may know or may not know, there are different employment categories here in Japan. Of course, there is the contract status where you have like any other country that you're a contracted person working for XYZ company, but there is also a permanent employee status. And different from other countries where you're a full-time employee, what a permanent employment status implies is that by law, you cannot be easily laid off or fired. So let me just read you some things because I don't want to get this wrong because it's about law and whatnot. This is just a simple Google search that I did and I'm just gonna read it out loud. A permanent employee is a full-time direct hire staff member with an indefinite employment contract, often providing the highest level of job security, stability, and benefits. And this is very true. As a permanent employee, you have a lot of more benefits than a contractor because you get the full social insurance, meaning your health, your pension, and your employment insurance. So what is an employment insurance? If you might not be in a country that offers that, well, let's say you wanted to change jobs, or you were not fired but the company went on bankruptcy, or for some reason your team, your division was lost in Japan, so you don't have a job now. The government can supply you with a certain amount of cash until you get your next job. So this is basically what the employment insurance is. As a Dominican, I love this. I didn't know this existed. I have heard things like this from my French friends. So I love that I have access to this as a permanent employee. Also, you are offered pay leave, bonuses, and commuting cost coverage. Of course, it depends from company to company if you're going to be covered your full commute or if you need to take a different route in order to get your commute coverage. But usually these are all the benefits a permanent employee gets. Also, it is extremely difficult to fire an employee in a permanent status because under the Japanese law of Article 16 of Labor Contract Acts, it requires high standards of objectively reasonable grounds and social legitimacy. Let's say, for example, that you committed a literal crime or you had for a prolonged period of time, this could be years, of not performing adequately in your job, then you are submitted to court in order to basically dismiss of your position and fire you. But we as employees are protected by law, and employers need to prove that we cannot actually do our jobs. In the case that they tried methods, if you are, let's say you are a designer or you're an engineer and you're not performing the way you're supposed to, usually companies, they try supporting you with education or even maybe changing teams and whatnot to see if you are in a better place for you to bloom. Basically, if companies didn't do this of providing you with education, of providing you maybe with another team, with other tasks, and they try to fire you, you can definitely go with that to court, and the court can rule an abusive dismissal and force them to reinstate you as an employee. I think this is, of course, it's very strict in like in the ends of the employee. But when I think about it as a Dominican and as a person that has worked not only for my country but also for other clients that are either in the US or other parts of the world, I think this kind of security is not only refreshing but also amazing. I do believe that a job is more than that. It's something that brings us character, it brings us some sort of pride and honor and also joy. I mean, if we spend 8 hours of every day in our screens or in an office, a job needs to be something else than just money, right? Like, I mean, if you are very money motivated, that is great. If you can detach from your job in an emotional way, that is also great. In my case, maybe because I'm neurodivergent or maybe because I see a job as a way for me to have a purpose, I think of myself as a designer not only, because it is my job, but because it is part of my personality. Like sometimes I design things just for a hobby. It's very tied to my artistic nature. So being able to perform and do my job is incredibly important for me. So having this sort of security where I am not easily laid off because I am not seen as a random number in a screen, I just love that. I think that is amazing and are one of the things that I love of working in Japan. So another thing that I love, and let's get into the business because I'm not going to lie to you. I also love that I have a very good salary and independence compared to working in my home country. How to say, the fact that I earn way better than in my home country and that I am able to be independent is incredibly a blessing for me. I love my island, I love the Dominican Republic, but I can never live in my home country being a UX and product designer working for a Dominican company. Maybe if I am in my home country but working for people in the US and or in Europe, earning in euros, earning in dollars, maybe I can go back. But unfortunately, there is very little stability to have in my country working as a designer. Another thing is that my country is very family oriented, very friend oriented, but not only because we are a bowl of happiness as Dominicans, we have a lot of dance, a lot of sazon, but many, not to say all of Dominicans, rely heavily on their friends, their family, and their acquaintances to find a job, to get a job, and even, to have a certain social status. For example, we do not move out of our family house until we are married, and finding our first job usually depends a lot in our friends. So I love my culture, I love my people, I love how social and kind-hearted we are, but personally, I want my personal space. So, not even in my wildest dreams would I imagine myself having my own apartment with the salary I make. Like, I used to live with my parents until I was between 25 to 26, or 26 to 27. No, I moved out when I was 25, and I rented the little studio apartment until I was 27. So I was ecstatic to have this very little studio apartment. So I left my parents' house and I was in this very teeny tiny apartment that was almost 35% of my salary. This is way back there when I was living in my home country and working in my home country. But I was a struggle bus. I was actually living paycheck to paycheck, but I loved living alone, and I love it even more here in Japan because the cost of groceries, the cost of commute, and the overall way of life is not that high compared to my home country. Sometimes, Santo Domingo, especially Santo Domingo Oriental, like the what is considered like the city, it's like like a little New York. Like sometimes the rent, you can find it even in dollars because it's so high. So here in Japan is actually more balanced. Of course, the Japanese yen is, weak right now, but even in this weakness, it doesn't affect me unless I go abroad to do a trip or whatnot. I can afford my necessities, my rent, my commute, Netflix and other subs, and I even have spare money to save. Another thing that I love of working here in Japan is that actually I haven't encountered micromanagement at all. I will say that maybe I'm blessed. Please do maybe another research, because I am explaining all of this from my own personal experience and from my own personal anecdotes. I'm in my 4th company right now, and I do have a scary story, but this is not with a Japanese company. This is me working in Japan, but it was a company that is actually international, that is here in Japan, but I don't want to I don't want to put myself out there, and this is alleged. This is alleged. I did have very scary stories coming from that particular company, but actually I have little to no episodes aside from that company of micromanagement. I have worked for, as I said before, for a couple of Japanese companies, and I have had very different Japanese managers, but they were kind of the same in the way that they handle themselves. After your onboarding, you are, you basically do as Romans do, if that is the saying, and that's what they expect. Of course, they will have feedback rounds with you. They will check on you, but not in the sense of, are you doing this task? When are you gonna have this task done? The clock is ticking. Where is my task? It's not like that. I, of course, have received feedback in the sense that, for example, my current manager wants me to be more of a leader and all of that. I think it was quite fair, but it wasn't related to a particular job that I was doing or to a particular task that I was doing. It's not over the shoulders quite of management. Rather is, I guess Japanese people are very independent, and they expect others to be very independent and to do what they need to do to resolve problems or resolve their task. It reminds me actually a lot to engineering type of culture when it comes to working. I was as a designer, and I hope this is a good saying, but I was raised with engineers, and every time I had a question, they will look at me and say, "Did you Google it first?" Once you Google it, and you Google it again, and you Google it again, and you don't find anything, then come to me kind of culture. Have you ever experienced this? Because I have, when I was a junior designer, I experienced this quite a lot. To be fair, when I was a junior designer back in 2013, it was quite a long time. So as a designer, I had to do a little bit of front end. Well, maybe it's not considered front end. It was just HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JS. So I was very involved with a lot of developers and engineers that I actually have very close to my heart. I love them. They are my best of friends, and I miss them so much. But anywho, the management seems a lot like that in Japan, so I think that's great. Maybe if you come from the Dominican Republic, or you come from maybe another country where you have a lot of human contact, this might disfocus you. Is that an English word? Maybe this will seem a little odd and will throw you off. As far as I experience, I like how it makes my mornings and late afternoons quite enjoyable and peaceful. I don't have that feeling that somebody is watching me all the time, and I think that's great. Another thing that I love about working in Japan, especially because I'm a UX and product designer, is the R&D culture. If you don't understand what R&D is, that's basically research and development. R&D in Japan is greatly appreciated. Japanese companies, although they might not change quite much, they do appreciate research, they do appreciate learning from research. And as a spicy brain myself that loves watching people, that loves seeing how people use things, how people interact with things, I extremely love this. There are a lot of famous stories from research and development from Japan, and not only that, but the inspiration you get with nature. For example, you have how the Shinkansen, the bullet train, was inspired by this fisherman bird. Sorry, I don't remember the name of the bird, but it's basically a bird that just whoosh goes to the water and fishes. There is also how tapestry patterns are also inspired by nature. You have the typical shark scale pattern. And when I was studying my master's back in Kyoto, my teachers will encourage me and other students to go out, to ask questions, to see people, and also get inspired by either museums, by artists, by makers, and I think this is very interesting. Back in my home country, there was very to none kind of exploration type of education, if I could say that. I think college it was very rushed experience, and there was very very little research done, if any. But I do think that the best teachers that I have in my memory did encourage us to get to know nature a little bit more, or even go to publishing sites to see how publishers do books, for example, and see the whole process. I think those were the best teachers, but the whole education was not focused in research and development whatsoever. It was very like, you do this because I'm your teacher kind of thing. So just to recap on the things that I love of working here in Japan are security as a permanent employee, good salary in comparison to my home country, and the independence that it brings me, very little to none micromanagement as far as I experience. Again, this is my own story, and the R&D culture. Now, for the non-sweet part, what are the things that I do not appreciate as much of working here in Japan? Mostly come from my culture as a Dominican person, and some contradictions that are in the culture. For example, one of the things that I feel taken aback from are the feeling of loneliness I feel from time to time, even though I'm working in a team setting and with teammates. Usually, although we will be working in the same project, I think Japanese people and even Europeans, they quite have their own space, their own personal space. And not only that, I think personal space is not only physical. Like, I can literally feel that there is a wall or there is a door between me and my coworkers, and it's a door that I can not open yet. It takes a lot of time, and it takes, I guess, mutual understanding of how I do my job and how they do their job. And if there is a certain chemistry that unlocks that door, I hope this analogy makes sense. But how to say, right now I'm very it is going to be my 4th month in my current company, and how to say, I feel like I want to get closer to one of my coworkers. And well, I want to get closer to all my coworkers. I think my coworkers are very stoic, and most of Japanese teammates will be like that. And maybe that's where the wall comes from. Until they don't get to know you in a full way, they might not, be as, there's like this certain energy that you can feel from your coworker, that you can make some sort of banter of. But there's this coldness that I feel from time to time, and that I didn't feel from working with other colleagues coming from either the Dominican Republic or from Latin America or even from the US. And before you say, well, Lily, you're working from home, how is it that you feel a certain energy with your coworkers? I don't know what it is. I think if you work from home, or maybe you are a more physical person, but even in messaging, you can feel when a person is being cold, or when a person is feeling more playful, or even when you're doing an online meeting, or you are in a pair work in Figma, you can feel a certain warmness or coldness from a person. Like, at least this is my personality, and this is what I feel. But most of the Japanese teams that I've been part of are quite stoic, are quite close, and there is a lot of personal space between, like, you and your teammates. And if you come from a very yali, if you come from a very like warm type of culture, you might be, you might feel a little bit of loneliness, like I feel. Another thing that I and this is a funny one because I talked about R&D previously, right? Another thing that I do not appreciate about working in Japan is the very, very, very slow pace when it comes to getting an idea to come out of that state of being an idea, and you start working on it. Japan has a culture of minimizing risk. I think it's very known for that they are very meticulous. They are, Japanese people take a lot of attention to detail. They are masters of their craft, and they also try to make as little mistakes as none. But although they encourage research and development, and although they love research and development, ideas get stuck in a nemawashi tornado. I think you might have heard of nemawashi before, from strategy talks or from people that talk about strategy. So Japan is the land of the nemawashi. Nemawashi means ne is a seed, and mawashi is turn. So like, it is the turn of the seed, the turn of the idea, and how the idea spurs around. So an idea can be totally in limbo for weeks, for months, for years, until it reaches a point. And a point might be a leader, or it, like, we have, how to say, wiped out any possibility of error, and then the idea gets to flourish, and gets to be, finally be in production. I think this is, how to say, this puzzles my brain a little. I think there is also the side that, also by their culture, they don't, how to say, they do not speak very directly. They don't, they try their best not to say something like a very direct no, a very direct yes. So even meetings can result in a non-conclusion because of this. So this also, again, turns turns the idea, turns the heart around. And sometimes you can be an idea or a project can be stuck in limbo because of this. And I just don't have the patience. I just don't have the patience for it, because like sometimes we will be in the same meeting over and over again, talking about the same thing over and over again, and those things kind of like drive me crazy. And lastly, and because I need to stay truthful with all of you, it's about salary. Yes. We are here for the money. It's a joke. It's a joke. Okay, so although Japan is, I really enjoy my status as a permanent employee, it depends from company to company, but it's very rare to see a salary increase. Like, depending on your company, some of them will, of course, say that they offer salary increases, but when it comes to make the salary increase, some companies will have, a lot of excuses why they will not give salary increases. Some of them will, say that, oh, we have been offering bonuses, or we have been offering, how to say, the social security kind of insurances for everybody. So that's like a win for everyone, no? And will withhold that salary increase until next year. Another thing is that for companies that, yearly will have a salary increase, they will offer them only to the highest of performers. I was blessed by a company before, and not blessed because I was like, I was working very hard, especially I think this comes from my neurodivergence, and also because I enjoy UX and UI design. I enjoy product design. Sometimes I hyper focus, and because of my hyper focus, well, I tend to high perform, and I was given, salary increases. So they do exist. There might be other content creators that have other perspectives, but again, as I said before, every one of us who have been living and working in Japan, we have our own stories, we have our own anecdotes. Not everybody will agree with this, and I sometimes do not agree with what other content creators say, but yeah, there are companies out there that will give salary increases. It's just that sometimes they give it to the higher performers. And these are the things that basically I am taking a bag of working in Japan. And just to recap, these are the feeling of loneliness. Although you might be working in a team, sometimes you can feel a barrier between you and your coworkers. Also, the contradiction between R&D and how the work is very slow paced to avoid any kind of risk, as well how ideas get stuck in nemawashi. And lastly, that salary increases are possible yet are rare, and they might be only available for high performance. So, okay, these are all the things I consider good and bad from working in Japan. And tell me, did you like this video? Did you dislike this video? Please do like and share if you liked it, or if you didn't like it, boo it and tell me all about it in the comments. Is there anything else you wish to know about what's it like working in Japan? I would love to make another video for this series soon. Okay, take care and see you in the next one. Bye bye!